Hey guys, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Joe Ferrisati, and today we're at Irwindale Speedway for the final round of Formula Drift. Today we're with RTS and Gforce Transmissions talking about transmissions from grassroots drifting all the way to professional drifting. If you're interested in learning more about transmissions, stay tuned and see what the right transmission is for you. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm here with Rick from RTS, and we have our Gforce Transmission Dox Box here with us, as well as some OEM applications, and as well as some other very cool transmissions.
Yes.
So Rick, you've been doing this for a very long time. Yeah. You've been in the transmission industry business for
38 years.
38 years, so you know a thing or two about transmissions.
Yeah.
And you service a lot of Pro FD transmissions.
Yeah, probably about 88 to 90% of the teams are all running my transmissions or rear ends.
Or if not, you're sending them parts or
exactly. Yeah, I'm servicing them. Yeah, and that's grown worldwide too. It's insane now. Everywhere.
So you see things even that they ship them back to you, they're broken. Or,
exactly.
So you see
lots of pictures and videos from Japan and Europe and stuff. That, hey, what happened here? Type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we have here is we have an OEM transmission. This is a Toyota R154. People tend to use these in the drift application, and I used to use one. This is actually personally one that I've disrupted or blew up. So let's talk about this transmission a little bit. Tell me a little bit more about this transmission.
Well, I mean, the pros obviously of using an OEM is when you're starting out, you know, it's affordable. They're easy to get.
It's already there. Right?
Exactly. So the downfall on these in the drifting application, of course, is the shock loads. You know, your clutch kicking, the e-braking. You have back loads coming in for if they're not getting their clutch and braking down perfectly. They got power going through to the rear while you're trying to e-brake. So it just double loads an OEM box. And most of these boxes, I'd set to say all of the OEM boxes, there is no shaft or a cuff to hold the shafts together. So you can imagine you have the gears trying to blow apart, and then they get up on the tip, and you're trying to power, 400 or 500 horsepower through there. It blows the tips off, which is a prime example of what you had here.
Gotcha.
And that's where, at some point you decide how many times am I going to break this before I have to step up to a big boy box, so to speak, or a proper race box, dog box.
So say you have this transmission and you're, what are the limits horsepower wise where you consider getting something that's a little bit more heavy duty?
I'd say, if your budget can pull it off, the sooner you can make the jump, the better. But around the 400 or 500 horsepower seems to be, it lasts fairly long. There again, the OEM, it's all cast. So you have, casted forks, casted center sections. The case itself is not designed for these torsional shock loads that drifting applies to them. Because of, you got power coming in one way and then power backloaded from the e-braking and the clutch kicking. So the cases move apart, there's no cuff, boom, apart you come.
And again, these transmissions ultimately weren't designed for the abuse of drifting, right?
Yeah.
Drifting, one of the biggest misconceptions about drifting is people think they're just slipping the back wheels, but there's a lot of grip involved, especially here at Formula Drift. People are trying to go faster and faster and get that grip to the ground, but yet being sideways.
It's the most brutal, honestly, driveline sport. I've been involved with IndyCar with Roger Penske for 16 years, and then went into NASCAR and then back into IndyCar, and then got into road racing. Most of my life has been my thing. But yes, they don't realize the brutal forces that are going through in a drift car are insane. Most people think, oh, well, the wheels are smoking. There's no grip.
There's no grip.
There's an insane amount of grip in drifting, especially at this pro level.
And shifting within transitions,
absolutely.
Just abuse, the demands, right?
The demands are insane, which that's why you won't see an OEM box in a pro level car. You just won't see it.
Well, it's just you're too invested to be able to have something like this fail, right?
Yep. Your time, your energy, money that goes into getting to the event. A lot of people don't factor that in, and then they get there and, oh my gosh, we can't run this anymore.
Right.
You let your sponsors down, you let yourself down. It's at that point, you do have to step up and say, you know what, I need a proper race box.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm gathering from what you're saying is if you're invested in the sport of drifting and you have a lower horsepower car, yes, go ahead and run the stock OEM transmission.
Right.
but there is a limit to it.
There really is.
There's a limit when you're going to make the big boy decision and go to a dog box, which is a motorsport application transmission.
It was designed, and its sole purpose is really just for racing, not for street. People do run them on the street, but they're also, those same clientels are running it on the weekends for drag racing or road racing or something, street and strip type of thing.
Gotcha.
So there, we have a lot of clients that actually do that, which is surprising. But these will run on the street, and also, but it's predominantly for racing. That's
right.
Like you said, it's time to step up and have something that's going to be reliable.
Right tool for the right application.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hearing,
Yes,
right?
exactly, absolutely, yeah.
So now, going into the dog box, the GSR, more specifically, dog
Yes.
box, tell me a little bit about this transmission.
This transmission was designed many years ago for the primarily for the racing world with NASCAR many years ago. It is sole purpose is for racing. 3,000-pound cars getting jumped up off the jack and then dumping the clutch going, you know, something that's going to hold up. It's got a cuff inside, like I had mentioned before, where the OEMs don't have a cuff.
That actually resonated with me right when you said cuff. I have rebuilt my transmission, and I know what you mean by that. And to our viewers, once we dig in, we'll talk a little bit more about the cuff and the support that the
it keeps your shafts from actually moving apart, so they stay engaged, fully engaged. And they're also a straight cut gear. As you can see here, everything's straight cut. So you don't have an angle cut gear that is trying to thrust load forward and back in the box, which is another weak point with these.
Right.
The bearings can only take so much because it's trying to blow the shafts opposite direction.
Opposite direction with no support of a cuff or anything, so it's just more prone to blow up.
It kills it, yep.
Right.
And then with the straight cut gear box, you have your bearings in the front, your mid plate, but everything's driving in a rotational manner. All the forces are basically horizontal.
Horizontal.
They're through the gear, so you don't have a thrust load with the shafts trying to go out of line with each other.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And now, tell me about the gears and the engagement. How do these gears engage and disengage on a dog box, and what makes it so reliable, whether it's on or off and strong?
Gotcha. So let me pop the top off of here. Okay. So the first thing you see is these steel forks. So these actually, like everything in racing, these originally were a silicon bronze style, and now more horsepower, more grip as racing progresses, we've actually gone to steel. So the other big difference is the forks on an OEM are generally, the fork is inside the slider, so to speak, that engages the gear.
Right.
Where the cuff actually encompasses the slider. So this is actually a stronger design.
Gotcha. And I immediately see an aluminum versus a steel.
Exactly. Yeah. So these are all now. Everything has gone to steel. There again, back in the day, it was a bronze, aluminum type steel. So this is way stronger. Let me set that over here. Same thing with the fork rail. We actually have a steel rail that goes through the top cover, and here again.
And this is a spare one. That's exactly what's going through there.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So these are an upgraded part now for the guys that have the older boxes. We've gone from an 8620 type material to, or even 9310, but actually to a tool steel material. So
which is a lot harder.
A lot harder, stronger. This basically where the forks are pinned in place, they will break through there. And there again, it's from the drifting shock loads we've talked about.
The on-off of the clutch.
On and off. The thing is just trying to blow itself out of there.
Right.
So we've gone to tool steel now. The nice thing there is we'll have TS in the back of the shaft here, so people can look at it quickly. If they buy a box, they can pop the shifter off and go, oh, TS, it's got an upgraded shaft in it.
TS meaning tool steel.
Yes, exactly. So the other big factors with
and then now kind of going back to these forks and kind of showing our viewers this is where it would sit, right?
Exactly.
So you're completely connected.
Exactly. So there's no way it's going to come out. It's it's over 50% locked into the fork.
Gotcha. And now talking about, and what's this part called?
That is a face plate, and then you have our sliders here. So they got a 7-degree back cut on them. So basically, when you go into gear, as this thing's spinning and it locks, you can actually, if you put them together and put a little bit of load on it, rotational load, it's holding
itself in place,
so
like a puzzle.
Exactly, yeah. So once you're in gear, it's actually trying to suck it in harder all the time, as long as you're on load, like throttle load or anything. And even when you go to like an e-brake type thing, that 7 degrees is enough to keep it locked in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can physically, genuinely see that right
feel
here
it.
when it's engaged.
Right.
I mean, when it's engaged, it's engaged.
Exactly.
So with this transmission, is there a gray area as far as engaging in a transmission like a OEM application?
No, you're in or you're out.
You're in or out.
Exactly. So you go for a gear, once it pops in there and locks in, you'll hear the big clunk that everybody talks about.
The famous dog box clunk that everyone talks about. Or you hear the pits constantly at a Formula D event, people engaging, rolling up to
you'll hear a big bang depending
line.
on how hard they're on throttle, so to speak.
So depending on how hard they're on throttle, you're going to hear a big clunk of engagement.
Exactly.
Got it.
So it's the notorious sound that everybody hears in racing. You're like, oh, he's got a gearbox. He's got a dog box.
That's some kind of dog box,
yes,
right?
Exactly. And there, here we are with the progression. You're holding this faceplate here. This is obviously the old school size that we've had for many, many years. And we've actually gone up to a 1/2 inch bigger diameter
So
now.
this is an older version, and this is the upgraded version.
Exactly.
So this transmission's constantly being
I mean, because the sport is out of control. It's
right.
I mean, back in the day, 10, 12 years ago, we were like, oh, this is good for 600 horsepower. Everybody's maxed out.
But then you find the weakness of that, and then you upgrade it.
Yeah. So
it must be great working with Gforce and their willingness to be receptive to your feedback and be able to upgrade.
Yeah, that's why I've been with them forever. I've become the largest dealer in the world for them, and I'm proud to say that, because people can call us up. You could be at the track on Friday, and because everything's here made in America, and between themselves and myself at my shop, we can get phone calls and be like, oh my God, I need to overnight it Saturday to the track. I need to change a ratio or whatever. You
guys can expedite that and get that to them.
It's handled a lot. We do that a lot throughout the year.
So ultimately, if you end up getting one of these transmissions and you need parts, Rick at RTS could definitely fulfill your orders.
We do all the time.
And that's what you do.
Exactly.
That's ultimately what you guys do.
And the customer service honestly has become second to none. People rely on me. My business number is my cell number, so it's like day or night, you call me up, I'm going to get it out to you somehow.
And I do call them up.
He does. Yes.
So, I mean, what else makes the Gforce what it is? I mean, obviously we have the shifter assembly that we took off, 6 bolts. Yep. Tell me a little bit about this. And
it's a single rail shifter. The old school boxes used to have the shifter off to the side, like you'd see like in a Super T10.
G101A?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, G101A is a side shifter, the shifting linkage is on the side, correct? For those that aren't familiar with it.
It kind of reminds you of the old top loader box back in the day, the old muscle cars. It's
like a Muncie?
Exactly, Muncie. There you go. Muncie, Stone Crusher, all that stuff.
Yeah, the rock crawler.
Rock Crusher, yeah.
The Rock Crusher, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And if you're interested in more about that, definitely Google it, Rock Crusher.
So those are what I would consider an entry-level box. They're a little less expensive. The GSR really is the premier box for racing because of the single rail shifter. This actually puts the shifter in the center of the tunnel.
Right.
Where your side loader G101A Gforce box, the shifter is basically about 3.5 to 4 inches.
So that moves the forks over to the side, so you're getting side leverage versus vertical center leverage.
Yeah.
Understood.
So it's
so this is the best transmission for this application.
In my opinion, yes, absolutely the best, hands down.
H pattern at least.
H pattern box. Your typical push down over to the driver reverse. Which is standard like in a Muncie type box.
Right.
These shifters it looks very simple, but probably the simplest things are the most engineered. It has a bell crank in here. It's all spring loaded, always puts it back into neutral for you.
Gotcha.
It's centered. It's considered a short shifter. The throw is very short compared to other boxes on the market. And there again, everything's in stock ready to go. So it is a premier,
1 unit and just ready to rock and roll.
And that's where your side shift boxes, it is a Muncie style shifter. It's a Hearst style.
Right.
So it's a much inexpensive, like you're saving $1,000 just on the shifter.
Now I'm seeing the adjustment. Do these come pre-adjusted when you buy it?
They do.
So they're ready to rock and roll.
Exactly. And I tell teams that don't send them back regularly, I constantly tell them, make sure you set your stops, because you don't want to load the fork
hard and be having pressure against.
You're bending the fork, right?
Gotcha.
So you're going into the gear. Prime example here. You're going to shift it. it's moving the fork into the gear.
And then now you're pushing extra against it.
Exactly. So if your stop's not set on the front, you're actually trying to push this in harder, so you're trying to bend the fork.
Gotcha.
So it still comes down to, yes, it's a stronger box.
It can take it.
Yeah, it can take it.
But as long as you're not extra pushing, as long as what's in gear, let go, and that's in gear.
And as you know, as a driver, your adrenaline gets flowing. You know, you're in there mashing a gear.
Oh, yeah.
You don't realize how hard you're pushing on it. So
when us competitors get competitive,
game on, man.
You know, you kind of zone out, and you're just driving to win, or to get to the door of the other driver.
Exactly.
And you're not
thinking about
aware of the abuse you might be putting in the vehicle. Again, another reason going with the transmission that could take the abuse.
It's true.
And not.
Yeah, hoping it's going to stay together.
Stay together and not blow up the gears.
The nice thing with these boxes is it gives you, the driver and the team, a sense of confidence. You're like, you know what, we don't have to worry about that. Let's just worry about focusing on setup.
Right. As long as and these are serviceable, right?
Absolutely, all the time.
So,
and I highly suggest people do service them at least once a year, at bare minimum. And there's a lot of people that don't.
Go a couple seasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it happens.
I hear about it all the time.
It's a budget thing.
And I mean, as you saw, Rick, there's how many bolts up here?
There's 10 up here.
10 up here, and you can take the top inspection. It's called an inspection cover, correct?
Exactly. You can be off in minutes.
Yeah. And you can inspect your gears. And kind of, I mean,
I tell everybody, check. You're looking for the edges to be either broken off or worn off as it's going in. If you don't catch it super clean, it will chip out the edge and go in. But you can pretty much go quite a few races. Even if you're doing that every event, you'll still get through probably half a season before it starts to round off.
So I think this is something you told me a long time ago. You told me, don't hesitate to shift hard.
Exactly.
Harder is almost better.
Be committed.
Be committed in this application.
I have drivers that, that they're excited. They buy a brand new expensive box, and they think, oh, well, I'm just going to take care of it.
Be soft on it.
And the dog rings don't like that. Because you don't have synchros in here, and you're in or out, if you're going slow, what happens is you're coming across, you're basically just catching that edge.
Like a lathe and machining it down.
You're basically machining the edges off. And you can imagine at 8,000 RPM and you're trying to go in slow, it doesn't like it.
Right.
And it's going to start chipping these edges off.
Gotcha.
You just want to go in.
I've seen that myself, and I've seen what can happen.
Gotcha, all right.
And
you want, like you said, you want to be committed. You want to throw that, you can imagine these are spinning, you want that thing to go in hard, quick.
You heard it from Rick from RTS. Commit, that way it'll cost you less.
Yes, exactly.
It'll cost you less.
Drive it like you stole it.
Drive it like you stole it. Great, Rick. Well, I mean, the Gforce sounds like the right transmission for drifting, although
it truly is.
Started off with NASCAR and road racing, but with all these upgrades, I mean, I run one myself, and I seldomly have any issues with it.
Gotcha.
Regular service sounds like it's necessary in everything.
It is.
Whether you're this or that, you're going to change your gear oil. But unfortunately, this doesn't seem very serviceable compared to, like, if you blow it up, everything's going to disrupt bearings.
Exactly.
You have to rebuild the whole transmission.
And the nice thing, too, like we talked about earlier, the gears in an OEM, they're not hardened, and they're not a high alloy contact material like you have in a dog box. So if you do chip a tooth off and it's going through the box, it takes out the other teeth much faster because the strength isn't there. Honestly, I've seen guys where if boxes aren't serviced for a long period of time and you do get a dog lug or a tooth chipped off, it'll actually run through the box and pulverize itself.
Right. Like a blender, it'll blend it.
It's amazing. The magnet looks terrible, but they'll get through in a race event in most cases.
Gotcha.
So that's where you're not just spending a lot of money for something pretty. It's actually super functional. It is the best thing out there for a racing application.
Awesome.
Truly.
Awesome. So the Gforce sounds like the transmission for this sport.
It is.
And now I know you have developed and worked firsthand on developing a very similar transmission, but a sequential.
It's a sequential, yes.
And that's what we have here.
That's what we have here. This is a 6XD sequential gearbox. My business partners and I just sat down and went from a piece of paper to an actual product in 11 months, 2.5 years ago, and it's become actually the strongest sequential in the world right now. And it's amazing. You don't have an H pattern, so you're shifting quicker, kind of like a motorcycle, one down and then the rest up. So as fast as you can yank it, you're going to be going up through the gears. Exactly.
And now what kind of internals does this transmission run?
This actually is Gforce internals. So since I've been with them for so long, when we decided, okay, we're going to design this box, what gears are we going to put in it? And it was just, for me, it was just a no-brainer. Like, called up Gforce and said, hey, we're doing this box. Can we get your gears in it?
So you trusted these gears enough to put them in the transmission
Absolutely.
that you developed
Yeah.
and have worked firsthand in putting it together.
Everything from the input shaft, the main shaft, lay shaft gears, all the dog rings and sliders, they're actually interchangeable. So that's kind of, my goal was
very neat.
Racers designing something for racers, and that's what we did. We actually, this box from your face on the bell housing to the tail shaft seal is identical to this, 22¼ inches. So you could actually upgrade from when it comes time, if you want to upgrade, you can literally pull this H pattern out, put the 6XD in there, you don't change the input shaft, the shifter's in the same location, and the drive shaft.
So it looks like just the back area is just a little bit...
It's bigger, yes, because what we have here is obviously we have 4th gear, so we ended up putting 5th and 6th and an overdrive gear in there.
Gotcha.
So we basically squared this off to get everything in the same package.
But it takes the same gears.
Yes, sir.
It takes a lot of the similar parts, and they're all made by Gforce.
They are. They're all made by Gforce,
Awesome.
and they do an amazing job. We have over 200 units out worldwide now. We've just broke another record with the Big Boy Viper guys, where they're running rolling start races. They're putting over 2,000 horsepower through these things.
And it's taking
2,000 foot-pounds. Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Gforce has been an integral part of obviously our box, and it's continued my relationship with them forever now. So
great.
It's pretty awesome.
And you service these as well?
We service everything that has to do with Gforce. Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I couldn't have a better partner, honestly.
They're a great company.
They are awesome.
They are pretty outstanding.
Awesome.
So there you guys have it. We kind of talked about the OEM application and the limits of the transmission.
Yes.
We've talked about the
Proper
trusted.
dog
I mean, people have been using this transmission for years.
Oh gosh, 15 years now.
15-year transmission in the sport of drifting and taking abuse.
Yes.
And being constantly upgraded and
we're always on top of it. You know, I see
developed.
Exactly. See little things and little nuances, and hey, we're starting to see a little bit more wear on this item or that item. Because obviously, as the horsepower and grip goes up in this sport, we have to step up with it. You know, and
Awesome.
that's what we do.
And then we got the H pattern dog box, and then we have
The sequential,
the
which
sequential
is
option to your problems. If you want to go sequential, U.S. built
yes,
transmission right here in the States.
everything's done in house, which is nice. There's no middleman. You know, you call up anything to do with parts or service or anything. You're either going to deal with myself as an owner or Clay, my business partner. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking the time today.
It's a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Make sure to smash the subscribe button if you already haven't.
Yes.
If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section. I'll make sure they get to Rick.
We'll take care of it. Yeah.
And if you need any parts here in the United States or worldwide,
Absolutely, yeah, worldwide.
check out RTS. And if you're interested in picking up a unit, they can reach out to you directly.
Exactly.
You also sell.
We sell. I'm their largest seller for Gforce in the world right now for
Awesome.
dog boxes. Have been for a few years.
There you have it, folks.
We'll take care of you.